I came to Altvia in November of 2022, so I think it's been just about 7 months now. But I had some relationships with Marlon, who is our owner, a majority owner. I've worked for some of their portfolio companies in the past, so the style of how they worked and how they ran companies resonated with me pretty well. I had some positive experiences there. So when Bree reached out and got in touch with us, super interested to learn more, and I'm pretty happy that I took the opportunity to come join the team. It's a stellar group of people here. So I head up our product management team here at Altvia, and product management is an interesting career choice because it can be very, very different from one company to the next. The thing about it is that you're kind of involved in every part of the business. So in terms of evolving private equity, the day-to-day things that we're doing involve setting a roadmap, defining our strategy, understanding what's going on in the market, what that means for us, what it means for our customers, trying to kind of predict where things are going and, present the right solutions to problems at the right time. So we don't want to be too far out ahead of the market, but we don't want to be playing catch up either. So, there's quite a bit of research and understanding that we do to get to that point. And largely, I think what we do is build problems build solutions to meaningful problems that our customers have, and it can be very big new features that don't exist. It could be new processes that solve old problems a different way. It can be something that's a little more strategic and combining different tools and software that people use day to day into one solution. So it really varies, but it definitely gives us the opportunity to largely influence our company, but also what we do in the market and at the end of the day, private equity. I think PE is an interesting space in general, like the alternative markets, because historically it's been a little bit of a closed community. Access to it is controlled in a number of ways. You have to be an accredited investor or have certain certifications to participate in these kinds of investments because of the risk. And the result there is that it's an industry that historically hasn't necessarily needed to leverage technology in a way that we're seeing today. But that's very, very quickly and rapidly evolving, especially when you think about PE firms that have insight into investing in software companies and other companies that are making changes in this space. They kind of get to see what's going on here and what's going on outside of the industry. So it's a really unique personality to be in touch with day to day. And like I said, product's job is to translate all of that into solutions to problems. And I think that helps us be part of the changes happening in PE and VC. Day varies quite a bit. Every day is a little bit different, but from the perspective of how we operate, I think you can look at weeks and months and quarters and see how we work. I'll generally give some high level examples, and then maybe talk about what each of those mean. So I think about just generally what we're doing in product. There's a mix of strategic planning. Some of the things I mentioned around reviewing industry news, understanding what competitors are doing, talking to our customers, and getting feedback from those folks and even our client-facing teams internally, help us put together a plan, right? We need some sort of a decision-making framework, and that really is our strategy. Where do we want to play? What solutions are we best positioned to solve? Who are we solving them for? Why are they important? So it's kind of maybe the foundation of what I'm spending a lot of my time on in product in general. The next biggest thing I think is being very cross-functional in nature. So, product doesn't necessarily sit there and come up with ideas, right? We need to listen to people, talk to different teams, and understand where there's opportunity and translate that. We're kind of like facilitators in a way, or cat wranglers, if you will. It's often hard to get a product from an idea they start on like the back of a napkin sometimes, all the way to something that's a full-fledged scalable product and market. It involves a lot of people. So, I spent a lot of time talking to our sales team, talking to customers, because, that's probably like the next biggest chunk of what I'm doing. All that gets distilled down into a roadmap at some point, and we use that roadmap to help communicate where we're going, track, execution, and prioritize what we're working on at any given point in time. In our company, we make very good use of our time and people and resources, and part of that is being pretty ruthless in what we choose to do, and importantly, what we choose not to do. And again, making sure we're communicating that effectively to key stakeholders. I spend a good time on like team management. We're not a huge team here, but we want to make sure that we're providing opportunities and fostering a culture of innovation and collaboration, and creating a good work environment, career prospects, and learning opportunities here. I mentioned this a little bit, but stakeholder communication is kind of important. It's maybe a little bit more than just cross-team collaboration, and the stakeholders can be, uh, Bree, who's our CEO, my boss, and making sure that we're on the same page with our vision and strategy and what we're doing. We have a client advisory board as well, so they're a good group of key stakeholders in market that help us give their input on what we're doing as a company, and maybe what we should be doing, what they're doing, what they're seeing in the market, so on and so forth. So these stakeholders take different forms for us, but they're all inputs and information that are super useful and guide what we do. And then the last thing I try to spend a portion of time on is just kind of professional development myself. So this is going to conferences, keeping up with the news, being part of certain groups out there that really drive our industry forward. And it's important for us to be experts in our market and our products and our customers, and that's a good way to do that. So there's some mix of that going on every day. Like I said, it varies day to day, but that's kind of the long and short of it. People ask me a lot, like, how do you get into product? I think it's a career that is interesting to a lot of people, and I got into it in short because I saw problems that customers were dealing with and was just kind of curious. Can these be solved using data in interesting ways? And that turned into something we started selling to customers really early on in my career. And I was like, well, how to do more of this? And that led me to product. So I think that's the theme that kind of keeps me engaged and has made product feel like a home for me for the past 15 years. And it really is a mix of, no day is the same. There are, of course, like processes and kind of routines that we follow in ceremonies, but if you're not evolving and changing, you kind of get left behind in a highly innovative world. And product gives you the opportunity to go out there and learn, take on more responsibility. Sometimes you have to put on your sales hat and go do something that isn't squarely in your job description, but it's a component that helps you, do what you're responsible for at the end of the day in product. And that variation it fits with my personality well. It's how I operate my personal life too, I think, and to some degree. So that's kind of the why behind product. I think our industry is one that, you can say what you will about like capitalism. PE and VC is kind of like this pure form of that, where it's like, let's look at companies and investments and figure out how can we make the sum of the parts greater than the whole, right? Like the 1+1=3 cliche statement, where if you're looking at like a single company, like, okay, you could acquire that and the revenue can potentially grow, but like, what if you bought 3 companies and they're complementary and you combine them, so you can get like really strategic and creative in a way that you might not be able to if you're investing in kind of traditional stock market type assets and 401ks. And the rules are a little bit different here, right? Like it's highly regulated, but they're a little bit different than what you see in public markets. So, that kind of creativity with looking at how value is created combined with risk which is a huge component, and then the alternative investments that you have to be comfortable with. Uh, but if you can take calculated risks, I mean, we all can kind of see it. There's a lot of upside uh, on the plate there that can be created. So I just think that's kind of cool. Yeah, and I think so. Getting in either into product or to a management or leadership role in product, there's a lot of different paths to it. I think nowadays you maybe see people come out of school with the intention of getting into product management. It wasn't quite the same when I was getting started, but if you think of it as a journey and the skills that you're looking to acquire and what you're interested in, you can find a lot of different paths that lead to fun, interesting career in product. For me, it was a combination of doing a few things. One, putting yourself out there where you're not necessarily like asked to do something, and being a good communicator that you're not just doing things like on your own and dark causes aren't valuable, but asking questions and figuring out ways you can get involved with initiatives of company, and eventually you start to understand how to do research and align that information with outcomes at the end of the day. And like early on in your career can be like small things, like take ownership of like running meetings and become a very good facilitator. Like that's communication, and you're doing that in product all day, like asking good questions, walking through customer interviews. Like that's something we do in product, and building those kinds of skills early, plus like visibly owning that is something you start to get known for, and then you're like asked to do it more, and you're pulled into projects for those reasons. Um, other things like being a really good project manager, like you have to have a system in place to keep track of all the spinning plates. And I would argue more so than just like keep track of everything, make sure that you're prioritizing the most important things and figuring out like what you can't do, saying no to things intentionally, um, and articulating kind of why you're doing what you are doing. So like having some framework around like project management, there's like a ton of resources out there. Like Pragmatic is something we use here. Um, the Project Management Institute is a good foundation to getting things done. It's like a good lightweight kind of like task management, time management framework. Just having like get good at that, because it's so much easier to be accountable when you have a system in place. And it also I think helps with your sanity in any role that you're in, and like feeling of being overwhelmed. Along the same lines, like as those two, I think getting good at goal setting is like this nuance that it's like easy to set a goal. It's really, really hard to set good goals. And same thing, there are frameworks that help with this, like SMART goals. They, being specific and actionable and measurable and time bound is what that means. We use OKRs at the company level, and that's a good example of okay, you have an objective, but what's the key result? Like, how do you know that it's successful, and how do you quantify that? And go beyond just a binary of like we did a thing, we didn't do a thing. It's really important in product because it's not just that you build something and kick it out the door. You need to understand like what value you're intending to deliver and how you know that people are getting that value. And that's like where I think where really great products kind of start to come from. And the last thing is like communication. Um, if you're not a great public speaker, take classes, join like Toastmasters as I did early on in my career, just to get comfortable talking in front of people about whatever. Uh, record yourself presenting, listen to it back. We all have these ticks and nuances. I say and like all the time, but being more polished there just helps you think about what you're saying and actually communicate it. And so it's like the standing up in front of people, and then there's the other piece of making sure that you're talking to other folks in the company that you work at, talking to customers all the time, because that's where you're going to learn the most, particularly in areas where you're working in like green field, blue sky type product situations, where you're not evolving something that already exists. You're trying to figure out how do we build something new that's highly differentiated or disruptive. I kind of hate that term, but you have to be talking to customers and experts and get yourself there. So really, really good communication is key. And then, for product, as you go through your career, you can kind of decide, do you want to be kind of on a leadership track, like people management, P&L management, strategy, or do you want to be more of an individual contributor, which can be more of a technical role? And there's both paths that exist. It just kind of depends on what your flavor is. But those things about put yourself out there, find ways to take ownership, find ways to be super accountable, set really good goals, and communicating ruthlessly and consistently are just the things that anybody can do that are important for products. And if you want to get into products, give you a leg up on someone that isn't good at those things. I like our core values because they're like simple, and you can apply them to like situations pretty daily. I particularly am drawn to our core values, action oriented and results driven. I think that's just how I am. I'm not, if there's something that needs to be done, it's like pick up the mop and mop up the floor, right? Like I hate when everyone just like stands around. Like my nightmare is where do you want to go to dinner with your friends? And everyone's like, oh, I don't care. I'm like, God, no, just pick a place. Uh, so I like that because like for me, that's how I learn. I learn by doing, and if I think we can do that and align that with like good goals, and that's the results piece. Uh, I think it's a good way to work. I don't know if everybody's wired that way, but for me, that's what I think.